Now, Nigeria is experiencing a notable increase in divorce rates, reflecting evolving societal norms and challenges within the institution of marriage. Despite cultural and religious expectations that traditionally discourage divorce, recent data indicates that Nigeria's divorce rate reached 2.9% in 2023, translating to 1.8 divorces per 1,000 people. Several factors contribute to this rising trend. Economic pressures such as financial instability and unemployment can strain marital relationships. Changing gender roles with increased financial independence among women have led to greater autonomy in marital decisions. Urbanization and exposure to different lifestyles have altered traditional views on marriage and divorce. Additionally, Nigeria's pluralistic legal system, encompassing statutory, customary, and religious laws, creates complexities in marriage and divorce proceedings. Now, for more perspectives on marriages and high divorce rates in Nigeria and Africa by extension, family counselor Ngozi Okonkwo joins us now to discuss this issue. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Now, as a marriage counselor, I'd like to hear your view on the high rate of divorce that we're currently experiencing. What would you say is responsible for it? And what are the things you've observed, especially from the couples who have come to you for counseling? What do you think is the major cause? And what's your response to that?
Okay, so thank you for this. I think one of the main things is that it's like this is a manifestation or a fullness of what happened with our parents. They didn't get divorced, but they were separated. So you have couples living together, but they are more of roommates. So what happened was that seed gave room for what we're experiencing now. So if we want to deal with the actual issues, we have to look back and say, okay, when did we miss it? We didn't miss it in this generation. It's just that we have an environment that is comfortable now. So people are now taking decisions. So if you look back, I don't know about you, but if you look at parents around, they will tell you, some people have not had sex 25 years with their husband, but they are 50 years.
There was a higher level of tolerance back then?
No, I would say there was a higher, well, I say higher level of, they were divorced, but they were not physically separated. So, but now we're having the concept of people now really taking the bold step and say, I'm not going to pretend to be with you, I'm leaving the marriage. And so because our parents were not able to address that situation, it has come to this generation again, and we are still not addressing it. So what's the problem? That's the first question. So the divorce rate is not, staying together is not reducing or increasing the divorce rate as per se, but it's addressing the core value. And I think it's looking at marriage as it should be in its entirety. Marriage is beyond just your feelings. If you've been married for more than 1 year, you will know. This makes me my 21 years of marriage. It's not just your feelings, you know. I've been in a place where divorce was looking like an option. That was actually what led I and my husband to reconciliation, and now we're family counselors. And so when we began to build our organization, we found out that what we are going through was common to most. And when you go and seek for help, they'll tell you, yeah, just manage it, now so we manage them. But you're not happy. And because now women are empowered, they don't want to, our parents then, some of them, the age gap, some of them had to be stay-at-home moms, so they didn't have power. But now we have it, so I have a choice. So the first thing we should ask ourselves is, what's the core issue? And that core issue is dependent on looking at things differently. So is it the finances? I think it's an offshoot of the core issue. Is it infidelity? Is an offshoot of the core issue?
How about the stigma of divorce back then?
Back then, oh, yes. The stigma is actually why they stayed together. They had actually separated. And that's why if you have these conversations with some people, they will tell you, their mothers will go for, if it's my people, they call it omugo. They will not return. They will do 6 months. After 6 months, are you not pregnant? They are begging you to be pregnant, not because they want to be pregnant. They need to go from one place to another. So I think we should look at marriage a bit differently. If emotions can't keep marriage, if love cannot keep marriage, what then can keep marriage? I would just simply say this. We're a tripartite being. We are 3 in 1. And marriage is the only relationship that converses and demands that the 3 must be participants in the relationship, especially in the place of marriage. So when you deal with your feelings and you don't understand how to translate it to who you are in your inner thoughts, what happens? You miss out. So the question is, how can we nurture? So sometimes when I say you can be very spiritual and have a bad relationship, you can be very much in love and have a bad relationship. But when you're able to bring all those 3 parts of you and you bring yours and we sit down and say we've come together to make this work, things begin to change.
Ngozi, if I may just comment. Let's talk about the psychological and behavioral problems in children associated with broken homes, and of course its impact on society. What are your thoughts there?
Okay, so there are two, my thoughts are a bit divergent, and I'll explain why. So the first thing I'll say is, staying married and abusive doesn't help your children. Because a lot of us are from broken homes. They didn't separate, but we saw them fighting every day. Let me give you an example. I came from a very blessed home. And when my parents began to fight and all, when I go to school and people are telling me that their parents are going on vacation, in my mind, I think they are pretending. Because that's not my reality. So the first thing we should ask is, what happens to the children, whether you're together or not, is not as important as what you do with each other that affects the children.
But abuse is not the only reason people divorce.
Okay, but now, you know, apart from, okay, give me a few examples so I can give you what I want to talk about. Yeah, abuse is one, fighting. Emotional abuse is one. This, or I call it, when we are disenfranchised, our visions no longer align. Infidelity is another thing. Sometimes money, I think money is one of the high issues. And so the first thing I tell people when you come for a relationship is, what do you really expect from this marriage? Because we don't talk about it. And then what do you expect? And how can we marry that expectation? And then how does this expectation affect the next generation, which begins with our children? And these are the questions we must ask.
Okay, do you think such questions should have been asked before
Exactly.
delving into the marriage
Exactly.
itself? Because if you take some time to know your partner or your future partner, as it were, some of those questions would have been addressed to a large extent.
Although you can never know anyone.
Okay, I agree with you.
But
you can ask. And I tell people, if you want to ask objectively. Don't ask them directly sometimes, because people tell you what you want to hear. Create case scenarios where you're asking certain questions. So tell people exactly, and tell them your stand. When I met my husband met me a week after he proposed. And I was coming from a very...
Love at first sight.
I don't think it was love for any of us, actually. I wanted to settle down because I'd come from a relationship that didn't work out. So I wasn't planning to invest in any relationship. My husband wanted to have children. So you see, we all came in. So when people are getting married, you have to actually find out why they're getting married. And that's the problem, because when they now get what they want, they no longer want to work at it. Yeah. But when we sat down and we began to have issues, we now asked ourselves, do we really want this to work? And then we now ask questions, realize that the spiritual part has to be discussed. The emotional part must be met. The mental part where we can connect also has to be met. And so these three things, we bring them to the table regularly so that the distance between us is not so much. But we don't put that effort. You have a dream, right? And every day you look towards that dream, you speak over it, even when you're tired. That's how marriage is.
Okay, at what point do you think a couple should come for counseling?
To be very frank with you, most people that do premarital counseling don't hear anything. They are in love. Oh, God. Let me crack a joke. Yeah. My husband and I, so during our premarital counseling, they said to him, what's your wife's flaws? Then we had known ourselves for 3 months. He gave them a blank paper. Even I was shocked. I wrote some things I noticed about him because I didn't know much about him. When we got married, the first part said, they should give me that paper again. I will give 2 pages. So they are not listening. So I think that in the first year of marriage, they should actually redo a post-marital counseling. By this time, they have an idea of what marriage really entails.
Did you say the first day of marriage?
Yes, they should actually go and have a because by that time, you will see that it's not really as, it's not theory.
On the first day?
First year.
Oh, first year
of marriage. Okay. So before your first year anniversary, I think you should go and have, and I think here we have a stigma. Counseling means you have a problem. Oh, no. Don't you have mentors for your business? Counseling is like someone mentoring you in an area that you think you don't have enough strength. Basically.
If I may come in again, yes. Could divorce be ultimately avoided in settling disputes, depending on the gravity of such conflict, yes. as it were? Because sometimes you find out, mere, well, I wouldn't call them excuses, but things you can, misunderstandings you can easily talk about and avoid going the whole hog in, separation, especially if the love is still lingering.
I don't know if you saw, there was a meme about a couple who went to the court for divorce, and then they were wearing Ashrabi.
I remember that one.
I saw that too.
So those are some of the issues to a large extent.
So the truth of the matter is, if you say it won't work, nobody can help you. It's a mind thing. You have to get in there and say, I'm going to give it 110. You see, as much as marriage has expectations. It's not a business transaction. There is never a time both of us are bringing 100% to the table. But what we require from each other is a level of commitment. So you have to tell yourself first, this thing is doable. And I can tell you, well, from my perception rather, and from those I've counseled for the past 12 years, because we've done this for 12 years, they always come with, I'm tired. And I said, in your job, you're tired, you still wake up. So if you can list the things and they are not detrimental, can we work on them? The issue is, he needs to be perfect, she needs to be perfect, or we need to walk through this together. That's the mindset that changes everything. He needs to be perfect, she needs to be perfect, or we need to work together through the situation. And that's what makes the difference between long-lasting marriages, actually.
So how, okay, go ahead.
I was going to say, all is said and done, communication is key.
Yes.
Here. That's what's virtually
How important is love language in settling differences in marriages? Because I know there's so much emphasis placed on what's our love language, what is love language. You guys have to, reach a common ground and all of that. Do you think
so I think love language is important, but the foundation is more important. So the first thing you have to ask yourself, and I say it again clearly, why are we together? What do we want to achieve? Marriage should be an advantage to both parties. What do we want to achieve? Then how do we service that achievement so that nobody is tired? That's where love language comes in. So when we communicate, we're not communicating just for communication's sake. We're communicating because we have some... Imagine you want to go to Kaduna and I want to go to UK and we enter the same car. That's what happens to marriages. And you get there and you're shouting, I'm going to Kenya, I'm going to... The person says, that's not what... Because we have to discuss it before marriage. Where are you going to? Let me imagine that a man has wired himself that he needs a wife that is a teacher that comes by 5 p.m. And the wife wants to be the president of Nigeria. You know that marriage, no matter how we walk around, it won't work. So can we communicate our visions? Can we find a common ground to move together?
But then again, that's the point where the love is still shocking you. That beginning part, so it's usually not easy to communicate
but that's what we should now tell them.
Yeah.
We haven't gone through it. Understand that if they are better prepared, they will do better than we did.
Okay, I know we have to go now, but
yes.
there's this one question I would like to ask. What are the major red flags that you see in marriages that you know that this is a no-go area and you just have to end up divorcing your partner?
Okay, so number one, the major red flag is when the person feels that you're the problem all the time, never accepting responsibility. I think that's major gaslighting. It doesn't help anybody. No matter how imperfect your spouse is, there's something that you're triggering, and you need to start with yourself, not always blaming the person. The next thing is when people shut you up, meaning that we want, this secret to tell people, no third parties, nobody. So when people tell you that, it is actually telling you that they don't want to work on their relationship. And I think I would say the final thing is when you cannot do things together, both in prayer time, having vacations together. I tell people, if your spouse and you cannot be transparent on the table with where you're going to, I don't think you can go so far.
On that note, Ngozi Okonkwo, our family counselor, I would like to thank you very much for that very interesting topic, as it were. It's good to have you with us.
Thank you.